We are live. Welcome back to Talking Mopars Direct Connections Live. Tonight, it's Friday, and I'm here with my friends Chuck and Matt McMurray from HemiPages, Ready Chassis. You know them from the Build Mopar project. And if you don't, you can always go back in time on the podcast. And I've interviewed these guys a couple times. It's always been fun. We like to talk race car stuff, and that's what we're going to do today. So, Chuck and Matt, sit tight. We're about to launch this thing, and we're going live right now. So, without further ado, if you are a Mopar enthusiast, then you are in the right place. Don't go anywhere. You're tuned into the best Mopar enthusiast-driven podcast on planet Earth, and I am your host, Chris Albrecht, better known as the Mopar Hunter, and this is Talking Mopars Direct Connections Live. Gentlemen, we are here. We are live. It's been a while since we had you on the show. So, Chuck, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and then Matt, follow up.
Thanks, Chris. Well, as always, we really appreciate you giving us the time and getting a chance to talk to the audience. So, again, my name is Chuck McMurray. I'm a co-founder and board advisor for Ready Chassis Race Cars, where we develop, design, and architect race cars for the masses. And my son Matthew McMurray is also on the podcast today. Matt, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey guys, I'm Matt McMurray, another one of the co-founders, pretty much the other co-founder of Ready Chassis and HemiPages and all of the projects that are involved with that. And I kind of rule a little bit more the press side of things, so I'm the connection to the world.
Awesome. The last time we checked in with you guys, we were talking about the Dart Pack, which is part of the Build Mopar project. So, Chuck, tell us about the Dart Pack and where you're at now in the project, how it got started, and all that fun stuff.
Sure. So back in May or June of 2020, we decided, given that it was an election year, that we would cast our own vote. And so we went out and created a couple of options with the aftermarket manufacturers. They nominated a number of cars as well as engine platforms and modifications. And what ended up being chosen and nominated by the manufacturers was a 1968 super stock model, which was obviously a very popular race car in the late 60s. And so over the course of 11 votes, which also took about 5 months, we individually allowed people, car enthusiasts, through a variety of different networks, to be able to vote on how they wanted to see the car essentially come together as an idea. First, obviously, as a prototype, and then we are in the midst right now of building that car. So they picked everything from the model of the car. So there was a couple of choices. We had a 67 Coronet, we had a 68 Superstock Barracuda. We had the 330 sedan, and the Dart won almost by, I think, twice as many votes. So that was exciting. And then as we continued to offer other votes, we had the color vote, which was really exciting, and a R6 Red was selected. They had the factory swatches to be able to pick from, and then it was the engine, the transmission, the front suspension, the rear suspension, and the wheels and tires. And so the Dart Pack actually became one of our what we call our icon cars, right? So if you're going to come to Ready Chassis and you're going to order completed, ready to go 750 or 850 race car with a modern driveline, the Dart Pack is one of the models that you can select. You, of course, given who we are, you can get that as a rolling chassis. So if you've got a drivetrain, or you want to build a budget drivetrain and have essentially the same car, but maybe you want to run a big block or small block, you have the ability to do that. So it was exciting. And then, of course, we immediately went out and started selecting bodies. We purchased a local body, and then got the car to the point of cage and media stripping and sold that. So now we're in the market for another one. I've got a line on two, and so we get calls and offers from who are essentially potential customers or people who are selling the cars. And there's not actually as many as you would think. if you looked at 2020 with all of the everything that would happen with COVID and the automotive aftermarket just booming, a lot of cars got bought up and a lot of projects got started, if not restarted. So the inventory for darts actually sort of shrunk in that year, which is great for the automotive aftermarket. Not great if you're out there trying to buy shells, but there's always a selection of nice, clean cars to be had to be able to start new projects. So we find them, and we've created a relationship with Watson Engineering, who you would also probably know as Watson Racing, who is the manufacturer of the drag pack. They also build the Cobra Jet, and we are actively designing the Dart Pack model and its reusability. Right. So what we do is when we build a race car, we define architecture that can be repeated, just like the factory does, so that we can make, even if necessary, hundreds of these. And because we can make them so well and with a lot of repeatability in the manufacturing process, we can get the price down to more of an average buyer. And you get a really nice, high quality, NHRA exceeding safety product for a nice buck. So that's what we wanted to do, is change the industry. We wanted to create real race cars for the masses, and now we're out there doing it. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's crazy. You kind of glossed over getting rid of the dart. What made you get rid of the other dart?
Well, so because the first thing we do, right, is we disassemble. So this car actually came locally out of Indiana, and we media stripped it, immediately got the cage, the four link, and somebody wanted to buy it, right? So not only do we provide like a body in white for people that want to build cars, we also offer a rolling chassis, and then if the car gets far enough, we typically build out an icon car, but we try to stock the actual rolling chassis. Well, I got an incredible offer for the work that we had already done, because somebody already had an engine and transmission. They had heard about what we were doing, and they essentially wanted to buy the body in white. So depending on how far we get with the inventory we have, sometimes people are buying them, on a body cart, no wheels and tires, but all the safety equipment's installed, and that's part of our product. So if this was our track pack Challenger or our 4-pack Charger model, I could have gone out and gotten 3 or 4 at the same time. But the classic Dart chassis is a little bit harder to come by. We're working with a couple of the manufacturers that create sheet metal to give us a new design. I can't say a whole car yet. They do make quarter panels. They do make floors, door shells, everything else, but nobody makes a complete chassis like Dynacorn does with the Challenger. So we're working to see if we can construct essentially a new 67 to 69 A body and work from that place. So that'll make inventory a lot easier to get to.
Hold on. So you're talking about manufacturing darts, is what you're telling me.
Manufacturing. So remember that from a licensing perspective, these are
Yeah, sure.
exactly the same shape. There's a lot of floor modifications and frame modifications that we want to do that sets the car up. So if you're familiar with, there's a company out there called Real Steel, and
Yes.
they make bodies, exact same process. So whether or not we would use the exact same floor plan, if you will, that Chrysler generated would be different, but it's essentially the same shape of car. But of course, it's a lot more modern from the standpoint of how that metal's casted and how the car is essentially put together. But in the end, dimensionally, it's exactly the same thing.
Okay, now I have to ask this. Is this a car that could be, if I wanted you guys to build me a Dart, is this something that I could title, or is it strictly Trek purpose?
So we build our cars for the track.
Okay.
This is a point of contention all the time, because I ask this question all the time. If you have a 1968 title and you replace everything other than the metal that surrounds the VIN, technically you restored the car and you have a VIN for a car. But that's really frowned upon in the industry.
Yeah.
You have the ability to go out and create a custom title like you would any other kit car, but it's all based on state regulations, and there's a lot of paperwork that has to be processed, and of course, like in the state of California, that's next to impossible. But the drive lines that we provide they're essentially, if you're using something like a Hellcat and an A8, and a stock computer, you've got an emissions-ready driveline. So maybe if you're in the state of Pennsylvania, the state would pass you with flying colors, but in other states, it's a little tough. Illinois is really easy, so we're spoiled.
So for someone like me, I would probably bring you a Dart. Unfortunately, I sold the one I had, so
Right, that
that won't
happens.
that won't happen now. But are you limiting to A bodies and the newer stuff, or is this let's just for the sake of fun, I could bring you my 78 B200 van and say, hey Chuck, I want to race this thing.
Yep. Yeah. So we are a chassis shop, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what we do is we convert cars to what I like to call door slammers or drag cars with doors. And so what we're trying to do is really enable the weekend warrior to have a high quality, safe, and repeatable 8-second Super Pro chassis that he or she doesn't have to run eights. Of course, if they've got a really nice 440 and they're really happy with 1050s, they've just really got extra safety equipment and a very stable chassis. But yeah, you could bring us anything that you have and we can convert it. What we're trying to do from a cost perspective is standardize on a few different models, right? So the Dart Pack is actually our M2 model. Right now, we're working on what is our M1 model, which is what we call Track Pack because we had to give it a name. But basically, we're taking a used 2015 to 2021, if you can afford to buy one, Dodge Challenger. We're stripping them down to the bare means. We change some of the floor pan, install a four link, and then build the car back up in many of the same ways that the race cars that you see in factory super stock are built, with a lot of the same components. And because we're doing that at volume and we're designing it to be repeatable, we could build 100 of these if the market demanded it. I don't think there's probably 100 out there, but we'll find out soon enough.
So I'm basic. If I took a car to ready chassis, say I've got a Dart shell, I can
Sure.
say, hey Chuck, I want a race car, but instead of all steel, I want as much fiberglass on this thing as possible.
Yep. Yep.
Nice. So
So the Dart Pack design, and we're going to be releasing a manual, so you could read about how you would build it, and you could order the components right off a ready chassis and build it yourself if you have the welding skills. And if you don't have the skills to put something together, but you wanted to order all the same pieces, we offer modularized kits, which are the entire front suspension, the entire exhaust system, the entire four link rear suspension, rear end housing, the roll cage, and so forth. So what we're essentially doing is we're creating a model of the best 1968 Dodge Dart race car design that you can build, and we're making that available in some quantity, which offers a lower price because when you make lots of the same thing and you make it the right way, your cost of manufacturing is lowered, and it just becomes more of a distribution and assembly process. I hate to say it, if you look at the early Copo Camaro program for factory stock, that's what they did. They offer a rolling chassis. It's called the Camaro rolling chassis. And for the Copo Camaros that Chevrolet license, they make 80 cars a year. I think there's over 850 of them out there. So much like Factory 5 did for the Cobra and for the Daytona Coupe, they make all of the same pieces over again, and it drives the price down a little bit, and it gives there some quantity in the marketplace. What we'd really like to see is, instead of one-off custom race cars, we'd like to see a really nice chassis that the NHRA likes to see because of all the safety equipment out at these races. I would love nothing more than to see 10 or 12 of my cars showing up to an NMCA event with different drive lines and different tuning combinations, but really, really strong and good stuff.
So basically, what you're telling me is Ready Chassis is like the Lego store for race cars.
Exactly.
So I can pick components or I can pick a kit.
Yeah, you can buy the book, you can buy the components, you can buy the kit, you can buy the rolling chassis, and if you've got the budget and we've got the Icon car available, you can buy the whole damn thing if you choose. And we created a package called Ready to Tow, which is an aluminum enclosed trailer that's made by Montrose Trailers, and it's basically an enclosed trailer that's made to fit the car. So what we've done is we've looked at the footprint of a 2-car garage, and if you've got 24 feet deep garage, or you've got a way to configure it, you can have a car in an enclosed trailer, in that single spot, and you only need a total towing weight of 6,500 to 5,500 GVW. So if you've got if you've got an F-150, if you've got a D-1500, you could tow your car home, if you buy the rolling chassis from us, and then you can use it to go to and from the track. So it
Wow.
really is kind of an all-in-one package, and like that's the idea, right? We want to make it easier for people to go out and do this, because if you look at the market, right, there's 1,400 horsepower drive lines now, with the Hellcat program. It's fantastic. They've got Hellcrate, you've got Elephant, you've got shops like Arrington that are building just, MMX building these killer motors, and nobody's really done anything to upgrade the chassis. I mean, Mopar, Dodge builds a fantastic car. The Challenger, if you think what they've done with the Demon, the Charger, they're very safe, very well equipped street cars. But if you want to get down to a 3,500-pound chassis and you want safety equipment to go 850s, are you really going to cut up your Hellcat or your Demon, or do you want to start with something that you're not destroying and use some of those same components and enjoy it? And so that's kind of where we wanted to fit. And we feel like maybe we're filling a hole in the market that exists today. So
Yeah, definitely. One thing that crossed my mind was, so I could go to like Copart and buy a car that's been salvaged. If my intention is just to go racing, I can go find a V6, an SXT Challenger, and go, I can get this thing for pennies. And I can take it
mhm.
to Ready Chassis, and you guys can build me the chassis, and we can throw a Hemi in what was a V6 car.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, what I would tell you though with Copart is, because a lot of those cars do have damage, right?
Hmm.
And we build systems that fit cars that haven't been hit.
Sure.
If there's a lot of shift in the core, there may be problems with how that would fit, and I wouldn't recommend necessarily. But I'll tell you, like a perfect example would be a car that was salvaged in a flood,
Yeah,
right? It was
sure.
exposed to some water.
Yeah,
We're disassembling in every way. The interior goes this way. The V6 Pentastar or the RT motor goes that way, and we're going to be placing all of our used inventory as we strip these cars in our classifieds or on Craigslist. So what's really great about that is the wholesale market, body shops that want seats, carpeting, factory glass dashboards. They're going to have lots of drive lines to be able to pick from. So I like to call, there's an eating term called nose to tail. It was a native a way to consume a whole animal. If you were to kill a buffalo, for example, you let nothing go to waste. So we're kind of taking that same process to recycling everything that we take out of these cars, and so that everything gets used. And it's truly, if you think about it, it's an environmental plus, because we're using everything. We're not creating something new. We're dissipating those parts and using the rest for our own purposes.
wow, this is really cool. Now, I'm trying to come up with some hard questions for you. So here's one that might be a challenge. Say say I'm the type of guy that likes to, I don't know, drum up some trouble, and I have a Camaro, a newer Camaro, and I'm like, you know what, this thing would be way cooler with a Hemi, and I want to really piss some people off at the track. Can I bring you a Camaro and say, Chuck, build this chassis out for me and throw a G3 Hemi in it with a Whipple?
It's your wallet. If that's what you want, I mean, we probably won't have a kit to put a G3
Sure.
in a late model Camaro, but a motor plate and welding will get anything in anything. So I mean, when it comes down to it, there's some custom exhaust, there's wiring harnesses and things that make that a little bit strange, but I've seen weirder, right? I mean, we've gotten a number of questions around putting a mod motor, putting the Coyote motor in a Challenger, and I'm like, I mean, can it be done? Yeah, it's a wide engine compartment. I'm not sure why
Sure.
you'd want to. There's no classes for that, but you can do
Yeah.
it.
Awesome. So although you're Mopar centric, you haven't shut the door on other possibilities.
No, no, actually, so we have a Mustang conversion that we call Fox in a Box. So if you So if you know anything about the Fox chassis, right, it's endless for the number of parts that are out there,
Yeah.
and the Coyote program is fantastic. So what we build is we've designed. We haven't built one yet. I've actually built a number of Fox chassis cars over the years. But if you've got a Fox chassis or an SN95, so if you think, I really like the 1991 to 1998 arena. They obviously went through a sheet metal change in 1994. But the actual head to tail chassis, if you take the rear bumper off and you've got the front nose off, that car is 13 and a half feet long. So we can get it inside of a crate. Now, that car doesn't come with an engine transmission or a third member pumpkin as a rolling chassis. You have to supply all of that. But we can put the rest of the car in a crate and get it on a truck and get it to you, and you can assemble the rest of it in your garage. The way I estimate it, if you've got a running drive line and you can hook up wires, you could have a running car in a weekend if you purchase it from us.
Wow. That's that's crazy. I know that some Mopar guys are watching this like, did he just talk about Fox bodies? So don't worry, folks. This is Mopar centric, okay? Now you come so I have a term that I like to throw around called restoration, but you threw a term out, I believe, on the last podcast you were on with me, and you said restoration.
Yeah.
I love that term. So one thing that I know we talked about in the past was if I wanted to build, say, a Sox and Martin or a Dick Landy replica, you could do that as well.
Oh yeah. 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 So we work with a company called Rage Wraps, and they can do a nose to tail wrap of the entire car. So you can take and lay the entire paint scheme out, and of course it's a wrap, right? So if you've got a really nice white car or a silver car underneath, and you don't want to be Dick Landy for more than a season, you could take all of it off, and every year you could change the exterior and the wheels and have almost a completely different car. But yeah, absolutely, it's quite easy to replicate paint schemes. Wraps obviously aren't paint, so you can tell when you look close, but for the track, it's good paint protection, and a lot of people like the way that it looks.
So I could get a body in white and have it wrapped something different every season.
Yep, you could always have a different color car. In fact, I saw Rage Wrap do stainless trim on a car recently. They did it all in black, and it looked fantastic. And it can just be peeled off. I mean, you got
Awesome.
to take your time when you do it, but yeah,
Sure.
you can take it off.
That's really cool. So are you working with specific um builders for engines, or how does that work? Is this a catalog I'm going to open up and I'm going to have a plethora of options for engines, or how is this how are you planning on running that?
Well, the crate engine market is amazing.
Yeah.
Arrington, MMX. We deal with an engine shop here locally, Opel Engineering. But we look at ourselves as bringing brands together, literally. So we're working with the Holly portfolio, Earl's Plumbing, Glass Tech for fiberglass, Pro Glass for the windows. But if you've got an engine shop that you really like, we suggest that engines are kind of your thing. What I found when we started this is that typically people either had drive lines that they've invested in, and typically their race car is worth about what their engine is worth. So we knew that the engine and transmission was the more coveted piece within the car, and they really like their engine shops. They really trust their tuning packages, and so we thought, it's interesting, but nobody really builds a car for better engines. Why didn't somebody do the reverse of that? And so we thought, well, what about a crate chassis? Like, why doesn't somebody build that? And I looked at like Factory Five. Recently, there was a company that came out called Revology where they build classic Mustangs with brand new running driveline, and they are they're amazing. Now they're street cars and they're 6-digit cars, but they are done with incredible detail. We wanted to do that for the drag racing market because you see these. I mean, I went to the Chicago NMCA, the 13th annual one that was in 2018, and we watched a Black Dodge Demon win the race, and it ran 920s, and
Wow.
the guy didn't have a cage, so when he came up to get his trophy, they could shake his hand and say thanks, but they couldn't award him the trophy because he didn't have the safety equipment for the time and the speed. And so I thought, not only is it dangerous, but that's a shame. I mean, the NHRA has rules for a reason
Hmm.
because these cars are dangerous, especially if you think about a 4,600 pound Hellcat without safety equipment at those speeds. Even with airbags and everything else, they're much safer cars than anything we ever had in the 60s and 70s. But you know, momentum is what it is. Velocity is what it is, and the physics don't lie. So it's tough. I mean, if you buy a Hellcat Red Eye, do you really want to put $3,000 worth of chrome moly in the car? Because in 20 years, that car is going to be worth a lot of money, in my opinion. So you really have to be dedicated to want to cut something like that up. And by the way, the IRS, I mean, I know there's some guys really breaking records out there, but if you don't have a good rear, you end up either going through parts or you find all the weak links, right? So
Okay, Chuck. So I'm one of those guys where if I'm on a website or I'm looking through a catalog and I don't see a price, or like if I go to a nice restaurant, you know what I mean? And it's
yeah,
one of those high end ones that they don't have the prices, it drives me bonkers. Is this going to be a situation where I can go on, say, the Ready Chassis website and I can see what I'm going to be into a chassis? I mean,
yes.
obviously there's some variables there, but is there going to be like a base price, so to speak?
There's going to be set pricing for everything. So right now we have a number of components that are listed out on the site. They're just parts now. We're actually putting together bundles and kits for things that work together. Um, and then there's going to be a rolling chassis fixed price. And I'm doing that because it allows us to cost contain and figure out what kind of profit we can drive out of something. I'm taking it in the shorts really when it comes to profit because I want to build a really nice company and a beautiful brand that supports a bigger market instead of trying to gouge people for hundreds of thousands of dollars. But at the same time, because we're producing quantity, if you think about when you order roll cage, components, if you order 10 roll cages, there is a discount in that. You're bending the
Yeah.
exact same thing over and over again. So the repeatability, it drives out some of the cost, and the manufacturers like that too because they know that they can fine tune the product and they can support it better. And so we celebrate the brands that we build with our cars. That's why we sell the separate components. I mean, you can do what we're doing in your own garage if you've got the tools, but I find that a lot of people either don't know how to do it, they don't have the tools to do it, they don't have the time, or they don't want to, um, because they'd rather just have it done the right way by somebody who does this all the time, much like you buy any other services.
It sounds like you just described me because I'm sitting here going, I don't have time to build a race car, let alone the skills. But I would love to have a race car, throw Talking Mopars wrap on it and go have some fun. Um, Here comes the other big question that I know a lot of people are thinking, and I'm just going to give you a scenario. Um, how much? Well, if I had my 69 Dart still and I sent it over to you and I said, Chuck, I want a body in white. Don't worry, I'll take care of the engine, or we'll talk about an engine at a later time. How much to get me? I imagine these cars are going to be certified for what, 850s or something like that?
Yeah, so there's two certification levels. The standard chassis is designed for 850. If you want to move to the 25.5 cage for 750s and the main beam that basically makes up that car, there's an upgrade. So we actually, when we put the four link in the car, we set up the core chassis to be 750, but you just don't get the halo bar, the other pieces that make up the roll cage that make it 750 certified. But so to answer your question, yeah, think of so there's really two factors. One is the rarity of the body, right? So the darts are harder to come by than our newer challengers. So if you said you wanted our 4-pack conversion of a Dodge Charger, it's easy to go out and find a cop car, or like you said, Copart, or find an SXT and strip it. To find a clean 1967 and 1969 dart to do dart pack, that takes a little bit more finding, but there's enough of them out there. The target, when I set out to build an 850 car without an engine and transmission, my target was to get to around $35,000, right? That's a media blasted, painted, certified car with seatbelts, wiring harnesses, pro glass, Lexan, chrome. Everything is essentially done. You're adding your engine, your transmission, torque converter, drive shaft, and third member. It's got wheels, it's got tires, it's got wheelie bars, it's got front suspension. The headlights are there. The wiring pack is dash, center dash out to the headlights, and there's an engine harness based on the type of engine you're going to run. So if you're running 440 turbo, if you're running G3 Hemi, there's a wiring harness for each one of those. We're even working on some slant six turbo stuff right now, fuel injected, lightweight situation. But we really want people to essentially plug and play. It takes time because you got to design all that. But it's for guys like you. You want to go out and spend your time racing. You want to be able to fix problems when you have them, and you don't want to have to always fix and customize when you do, right? You want to order a new wiring harness because somehow you burnt one. You want to get a replacement for it. And so that's the idea, is that repeatability. I want people to be able to solve their own problems. And if we've got enough quantity, they could even buy spares if they really wanted to.
I like the idea that I know that the car's not going to fall apart on me. You know what I mean? That, hey, at least I'm safe in this thing. I may be slow because I don't know how to drive the thing, but at least I'll be safe. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
that's what I feel like. I could order a car from you, throw a elephant in it or something, and probably run 16 seconds. Go, well, I did it. I suck, but I did it.
Yeah.
Um, that's I love the amount of options that you're giving enthusiasts to basically build the race car of their dreams. Because I know guys like me, I'll watch Street Outlaws and go, God, you know, I'm looking at these semi truck trailers and these cars that have to be in the six figures. And I know I'm not going to be to that level, but gosh, it sure would be cool to order, you know, a ready chassis car with the trailer that fits in my 2-car garage. I love the concept. I love the idea. Um, is it, is this going to be a situation where you're going to have inventory of cars ready to go? You're going to have chassis just waiting?
That's the idea. I'd always like to have at least one chassis of every one of our icons available. So if you really like Dart Pack, I would hope that you'd be able to call us, and within 2 weeks time, you'd be able to get one of our it's we if we do that right, we have to choose colors. Everything that we've chosen so far has been from the hypo colors, right? So, top banana, B5 blue, R6 red, Hemi orange, plum crazy. And so when we finish a car in that color, if you hate plum crazy and you're waiting for a Hemi orange car that may not come around for a couple of months, you can always wrap the car to be a different color. And not everybody wants to have a white car either, right? But we're going to finish a number of chassis. I mean, I personally, if I look at a 68 Dart and plum crazy with a black hood, that's got a really nice tire and skinnies on the front, and I know it's got a glass front end and Lexon windows, I'm pretty much like ready to go at that point, right? So, I mean, those cars are so cool, and those paint schemes are so cool that they're timeless, and so we try to create what I'll say are characters, right? Characters that you've seen out at the races, characters that you've seen over time, and you can have a piece of that fun, and that's what we're trying to do. And this, I don't want to take over the entire conversation, but I look at Matthew's generation, and he can tell you about what he sees, but he's got friends and peers that want to have fast cars that are safe, and there's only so many options that they can either afford or that they know how to build. And if your dad or your uncle, they weren't into cars, how do you get educated, and how do you learn it? So we're trying to essentially fill that gap, and give the next generation something to be able to start with.
That's amazing. I really love this concept. It's just really cool. So I'm a dreamer. So I'm like, Chuck, I don't have $35,000 just next to me at my desk here. Is there any way? I mean, do you have a payment plan? How are we going to afford to just dump 35 grand? Now, I can go finance a scat pack right now and just end my dreams of ever having a race car. Or is there an option for Ready Chassis?
Well, so think of it this way, right? We love guys that buy brand new Mopars. You go out
Mhm.
and you get a 1320 Scat Pack. We have components that work with those cars. I mean, we've got a roll cage that fits in that car. We've got weight reduction concepts that you can use, lightweight batteries, full exhaust systems, upgrades that you can make, supercharger upgrades, nitrous, whatever. That's definitely a fantastic option. And I think that's what Mopar and Dodge have done so well. But if you want to start with a race car, because you like vintage stuff, if you think about how much you're going to spend to build a race car, and you want it to be right, you're going to end up at around that amount. But we're working with a number of financial institutions to offer financing right on the site, so that you'd be able to buy a core, and it takes us time to build it, but you'd be able to take it home faster than you could probably get a chassis shop to accept your car and turn it around and get it back to you. That's not to say that there aren't shops out there that do great work really quickly. But what I've seen is cars getting stuck in, body shops for 2 or 3 years at a time, chassis shops not finishing the work that they're supposed to, engine shops taking 2 years to turn around a long block. It happens all the time. If you think about what we're doing, we're trying to general contract lots of these companies, and a number of few that have made commitments that they can turn things around quickly and get them out when people want them. We're going to try as hard as we can to be able to meet those timelines when people want them.
That's awesome. So not only can you get a race car, but you can potentially finance one. So everybody that wants a race car, you better get your credit up right now. I'm working on mine. It's going to be great. You mentioned time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious. I know a lot of people, if you got a lot of money, it always comes down to the two important things are time and money.
Yeah.
How long do you have a target time window for, say, we'll just say for the sake of argument again, I've got a 69 Dart. It's solid. You don't have to do too much metal work on it. It's really clean. I want the chassis. Let's just throw a Helifin in it, see what it can do. How long am I looking at waiting for this car?
So what I would say right now is, with who we've contracted with, you're probably at 6 months.
Mhm.
It depends on volume,
Sure.
really. The idea got very popular very quickly. So, I would say you're probably at 6 months. If you were to call me in August, you're going to have an easier chance of getting something around turned faster. You're gonna get that car turned around faster than if you call me in February right before race season.
Sure.
That's just traditional seasonality of how the automotive aftermarket works.
Yeah, I do hear horror stories about guys having cars at a restoration shop for 2, 3, 5 years. It's insane. So it's really cool that you're working on creating just a one-stop shop. That's really awesome. You're probably going to get someone crazy. Like, God forbid I ever have a ton of money. I'm going to go get a 70 satellite, and say, Chuck, I'm going to need a Superbird race car. And I mean, from the sound of it, it sounds like you're open to that kind of stuff. It's not just, darts or newer stuff. And I think that's really cool. I'm really excited to see what kind of crazy, because I know everybody's got crazy ideas. So I'm interested to see where you go with things like that.
Sure.
But are you up and running right now, or is this something that's going to take a little bit to get the ball rolling?
No, we're off to the races. So, I mean, this is Matthew's full-time gig, and I'm helping to consult. We've got 2 or 3 other guys that are involved. It's interesting every time you start a business, right? The parts business, he's been working the parts business with Tamraz's Parts, which is a retailer that's been around, geez, almost 35 years. So they sell restoration parts, and they've started to carry performance parts. So there's this sort of supply line out there already, where people can get components. Bundling the kits and getting a prescribed kit, right? Something that says this front suspension works with this exhaust system, works really well in this car for this weight class. That's taking some time to prescribe. So what we're doing is we're working on we've got 3 chassis that we're developing over the next 2 years that we want to standardize on. The LC chassis is a fantastic platform. There's a lot of SXT and RT cars that are turning up. If you're going to start with something, shoot for something that's less than 75,000 miles, not a Rust Belt car, right? If you can get it out of Arizona or Texas rather than Michigan, you're going to start with something that's a lot cleaner. And then we're not doing any blast work or anything like that. And we have sort of the same scenario for each chassis, right? So we don't have a plan for extensive rust work. If you've got an LX or an LC chassis car, you can go out and get a core that's stronger than that. And so the concept is, with the 4 link and ladder bar options, you don't have many to pick from. And the reason is because we want to work with one manufacturer, one rear suspension provider, one front suspension provider. If of course you're looking at Magnum Force Racing versus AJE, essentially they end up in the same car at the same place. But remember, every time you customize, you take the risk of either needing different parts or just finding different combinations that we maybe necessarily haven't put together, because we can't put every combination with every combination. So we're picking a lot of the same vendors, and quick fuel technology, Holley EFI, TTI exhaust, R&R wire loom is helping us with switch panels, Weld racing wheels. You can always change things yourself later, but new parts come with warranties from the manufacturers, and we provide instructions on how to essentially maintain the car, and that's kind of the program. We are trying to avoid getting into customization, for the mere fact that it takes a lot of time, and they become perfectionists when they're building cars. What we're trying to do is create something that's great enough. I don't say good enough, but great enough for the population to go out, have fun, and have some reliability, and get the most out of what we're producing. So that's the idea.
Yeah, I really like the idea of having a stock of cars ready to go. That to me, that's going to be awesome. So are you actively out there? Are you going to be to blame for all these A body shells just disappearing off the market real quick, or what?
Well, so we have an A body acquisition, right? So we've got classes that when we look at a core, we've got a rating system, and we're not touching the 340 H code cars. We
Yeah.
certainly would never touch a super stock, GTSs, none of that. There's plenty of slant 6 and 318 cars that are out there. It's easier to find a 73 Dart than it is a 67, 68 Dart. Body exterior is different, but underneath they're practically the same. Lingenfelter, who provides the aluminum brackets, makes lightweight brackets. ProGlass makes all of the Lexan. Glass Tech makes, and VFN as well, make all of the fiberglass components for those cars. So the rare stuff is a little harder, right? If you brought me you see behind Matthew, he's got a 77 Volare wagon. That's one of our Slant 6 test cars. If you want a fiberglass rear hatch for that car and a pro glass window, it can be made. But you got to get in line at Glass Tech, and you've got to get in line at Pro Glass to be able to have that made. And then we got to get it right, and we got to get it painted. So it's not that easy to do different stuff. It's funny. I learned all of this in the software industry. For 22 years, I've been consulting in software, and there's a term. It's called customization versus configuration. Customization says if you do something and it's one off, when you go to repair it or replace it, it's also one off. Configuration says take things out of the box and try to use them as they are. So if you think of like Facebook, right? You build your own Facebook profile, you add your picture, you add your material, but you're not actually coding the site. You're just using Facebook. The concept in software and the concept in cars is configuration. Use essentially what gets by, what you need and what's right, and make it your own. But don't go so far outside the lines that it's hard to get parts for. If you think of something like drag week, if you get stuck out in the weeds and you need fuel fittings, you certainly don't want to be getting weird parts. You want to use standardized 8AN-6AN fittings because you can get them somewhere. Um, if you think about, like, if you're a Gen 2 Hemi guy and you're doing drag week, you have to have spares for everything. If you're an LS or a Hemi guy, there's a chance you can get a crankshaft somewhere, right? Faster than you would for the really rare stuff. So the
Sure.
idea is use the stuff that's out there, that you can get out on Craigslist without having to pay a fortune to do replacements, and it makes it easier for maintenance. And of course, your cost comes down because maintenance is easier.
Awesome. When is the catalog going to be ready? When can I go and fantasize and put together my dream car?
So we're actively building that right now. We're working with manufacturers to create the modularized kits, right? So like, for example, we had a meeting with AJE, and we said, like, hey, we want a G3 conversion for, and they already have that for an A body. And of course we have customers asking, like, well, what about this engine, or what about this transmission? And so, companies like US Car Tool, doing a fantastic job of creating like transmission tunnels that fit the late model transmission. So what we're doing right now is we're putting together these what I call modularized kits and saying like, hey, if you've got a 68 Dart, here's front suspension, here's rear suspension, here's gears, here's wheels, tires, here's glass, um, everything that you would essentially need, and you can order it in these kits. And then of course you can just order the components, because maybe if you're working on a budget and you're going to build a car over 5 years, maybe you start to acquire everything, but in the end, when you take it all out of the box, that it's going to work together. So like, go back to your Lego idea. If you bought 10 different sets of Legos, when you spill them all out on the table, they all still fit. So that's the way I've always wanted to do it. Unfortunately, the custom aspect of the racing industry has made that really tough. I think when you see like, well, first of all, you see what the manufacturers are doing, right? So if you look at a Dodge, I mean, if you have a Hellcat and you need a supercharger replacement, you can go to a Dodge dealer and you can get a supercharger. If you've got if you've got a pro-charged 440 car with Indy heads and you need to get parts, it's going to be a little bit tougher to get those things. You can't go down to the Dodge dealer to get those things. Even though those companies do a fantastic job of providing stock and replacement parts, it's still just a different category. And so we've seen this like in the LS market, we've seen this in the Mustang market. They have a lot more standardization, and thereby it's easier to build some of this stuff. I've always dreamed of being able to do that with Chrysler products. And I think that if you're in a big block or a small block in an older car, that's easy. You call TTI, they've got headers for almost every situation you can imagine. But if you start doing late, or Gen 3 Hemi swaps in earlier model cars, companies like Holly are now starting to provide, the Blackjack series.
Mhm.
US Car Tools reproducing engine mounts to do those conversions. Bouchoulion Performance, I just read earlier, well, late last week, we gave them a call. They're making a Gen 3 Hemi mounts for 73, 74 B body, right? Like I've got one of those. I've got a Coronet and I wanted to do a 5.7 turbo conversion for it. Well, now there's parts. So we're working to bring that kind of stuff together, and that'll be available soon.
That's really cool. I'm really excited because there's a lot of, going back to A bodies, there's a lot of, 73, 74s out there. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, those years suck. But it's like, if I'm going to build a race car, who's to say, let's chop the butt off that thing and throw an earlier, Duster Demon, back end on it, throw a, Duster Demon, an earlier front end on it, just to build your dream car. You know
Yep.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Lots of opportunities here.
AMD, Golden Star, PUI, they all make a lot of those repopped restoration parts for that stuff. So if you've got a 73 Duster and you want to put a 70 Duster front end on it, it's not out of reach these days. I mean, you couldn't think of doing that 20 years ago, but as they make new grills, they make sheet metal, it becomes easier. It's being a general contractor and bringing together all of these sort of teams and people that provide services to build something, and to standardize it a little bit makes it easier for the market. It's a bit of a paradigm shift. I'm surprised it hasn't been done yet, as to the size that I'd like to see it done in, but somebody's got to do it, so we're going to give it a shot.
So what are you doing as far as like, I'm just going to get into some details that have just been going around in my head, like dashes, or are you doing factory dashes, aluminum dashes? What kind of options do I have for something like that?
So we have a product called, of course, Ready Dash. So, right.
Cool.
So if you go out and you buy if you're doing the Dart pack, right, and you're going to do, let's say you're going to go to Cleveland Power Performance and buy a Hellcat with an A8, the full drive line. Those guys sell a turnkey pallet with everything on it. Well, you're going to need a place to put the LCD panel. You're going to need a shifter mount. So what we're essentially doing is we're taking the shell of that Dart. We're making some aluminum components and bracketry, and we're making that so that you have a wiring harness, a computer, gauges. You might even want to add on a data logger if you've got Holly EFI and that's what you want to run on the car. All of those things have places. So we're talking to Autometer to figure out how that works. There's a lot of things in the aftermarket already that solve that problem. Like Autometer has a drop-in plastic container where you can put it right in the dash.
Hmm.
But if you've got the Hellcat computer, they haven't built for that yet. Maybe they will at some point, but we're coming up with the in between, which is where it fits. I'm redesigning right now an A body dashboard that looks a lot more like a late model Charger shape. And so
Cool.
once that's sort of molded, you can even reuse some of those gauges and things. And so, I'll say this to the world since they're listening. If you're a manufacturer and you've got a really cool idea for being able to fill in that gap, we'd love to hear from you, because anybody that's making it is making our lives easier. We can get it to the market faster.
I like the idea of a newer style dash in an old car. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
With these cars, are you going to have the tin work and stuff done, or is that something I get the car and I got to go find somebody to do all the tin work too?
No, that's done. That's
Nice.
done. So what we've tried to keep you can go fast on a 9-inch tire. If you look at supercar, that's how fast drag packs are going on a small tire. Same thing with the Copos and the Cobra Jets. So we try to maintain wheel tubs and really great working suspension, so that you don't need to have giant wheels and tires on the car. That makes it a little bit hairier on the top end, but it makes maintenance and everything else a lot easier. You don't the world of the steamroller tires, that's a look. I like it. It's cool. But you don't always need 33-inch tall, 16 wide tires to get down the track. If you've got a good working suspension and you know how to get the transmission set up, if you've got the right car and you've got the right rear suspension and good weight transfer, you don't need a huge tire.
Awesome. So I can get this car. It's going to be all tinned out, ready to go. I'm assuming you're going to have aluminum door panel. The thing's going to be ready to go. Just pick an engine, drop it in,
You'll
send it
see it
over to
all in
my
the
house, and
photos.
let's go.
That's
Nice.
right.
Man, this is fun. One thing that, and here I am asking crazy questions again. So I know you want to stick to, the more common stuff like the A bodies and the newer stuff. But one race car, and every time I see one, it just gets me going. I love them because I'm such a fan of the era. And I see a lot of what would have been front wheel drive Dodge Daytonas that have been converted to rear wheel drive. And I haven't seen one, and now there might be one out there, but I haven't seen one at the track yet that's converted to rear wheel drive that has a Gen 3 Hemi in it. Is this something that you could do for me? Because I may or may not have a Daytona laying around.
So, okay. Well, so I've seen a couple of G3 conversions on Daytonas. And if I'm not mistaken, Mopar Performance actually had a small block conversion kit back in the day. It was actually a catalog part number.
Yeah.
The challenge with providing that is there's not enough rust-free cores out there.
Mm.
And there's a lot of extensive work that needs to be done that makes that more of a custom situation. And
Sure.
there's not a whole lot of people that want them. So it's not that we wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But I would probably try to talk you out of it, because once you look at what it's going to cost, and then, what would somebody want to buy that car after you were done with it, right? The one thing that we try to look at is resale value. If you're getting a ready chassis car that has serial numbers and part numbers for the kits that make up the car, you can essentially maintain that for 20 years. If you've got something custom and you need to change the floor, you're just back to doing what everybody else does with race cars, and you're customizing. So.
I really like the idea of ready chassis, making it so easy, because I'm the type of guy that likes to make things difficult. I do it all the time. Just like what I just talked about I don't need a Daytona race car. I go get a Dart. You know what I mean? I know that another crazy thing that I like to ponder about is how streetable can one of these cars be? If I brought you a Dart, for example.
So I'm probably the worst person to ask about streetability, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm the guy that drives around the neighborhood, and you've seen it on my Facebook page. I've got a '73 Coronet with a 5-gallon fuel cell, exhaust just quiet enough to keep the cops off my butt, and it runs 200 degrees all the time. Electric fans, electric water pump, electric fuel pump. It's got a roll cage. Still, back seat still works. I use my 5-point harness when I get in the car. So I drive. If in my opinion, if you can register the car and you can pay for insurance, it's a street car. Not everybody feels that way. So.
Okay, that's because I know that there's a couple Looney Tunes around here that love to drive their race cars to local shows. I love it. I think it's amazing, and there's always a crowd around those cars, especially when they start them up. They're either starting up or parking them. There's always a crowd around them because it's like, does this guy really drive it on the street? You know what I mean? So it's really fun to think, oh, I'm going to go, have my, because I've been saying this for a long time, the G3 Hemi in a super stock style Dart is like my dream, because it's like, what,
Sure.
it's awesome. That's why I'm such a fan of the Build Mopar Dart pack, which
Yeah.
I do want to talk about a little bit more again. Where are we at on that project, and when can we expect to see that running down the track?
So we were originally targeting to have that car done for Modern Street Hemi Shootout 2021. I was way over aggressive in estimating that, because when I decided to build cars for other people, I didn't really know that they were going to come and try to buy everything that I built. So we're shooting for next season. We're going to have the Dart Pack model and all of the equipment that essentially makes up that repeatable chassis for this winter. So if in the November timeframe somebody wanted to build 10 variations of it, we'll have that entire parts kit available. But the answer is, we'd like to have it for next year. The other thing that was kind of weird is, as COVID was coming to what I thought was an end, there was some quite, Route 66 didn't open this year.
Hmm.
They weren't open last year. They didn't open this year. We don't actually know if the track is going to be open. It's terrifying to me because I'm so close to it. So there's a couple of different schedule changes and some
Yeah.
things that haven't happened in certain states. So I don't feel that bad. But I do know that the Modern Street Hemi Shootout is doing really well. Dan Van Horn is out there making it happen. I think they've already had 2 events. I think this
Yeah.
weekend's maybe the third. NMCA is running. I heard that the other races that are around the country are happening. So, Hot Rod Power Tour, I'm not sure about, but I know that Drag Week is supposed to happen. So hopefully that we see those things. And I'm watching Flow Racing is now the replacement for uh, Speed Video. So I've been keeping up on all that, and it's fun to be able to actually virtually attend those races when you can't make them all.
Yeah,
But we're in the
definitely.
shop. Yeah.
I need to look into that. That would be fun. So with the Dart pack, are you still I mean, we had the enthusiasts. I say we like I'm part of it. You guys had the enthusiasts vote on how this car was built, but I know that there's been a couple changes. Like I know Whipple's got the big 3-liter now, and I believe the original plan was a 2.9-liter blower on it. So are you giving yourself a little bit of wiggle room as far as, okay, well, forget the 2.9, we'll throw the 3-liter on it? Are you making changes to the plan?
We are going to build the icon car as you see in the renderings. We're building that car in that color with those parts because we're going to have one that is the Build Mopar car that's going to go to auction, right? And then we're going to build variations of that same car. I'm actually working with Abimelech, who does our renderings, to create a purple version. Or sorry, I don't use the word purple. Plum Crazy, Hemi Orange, and Black. So you can actually see the way that car looks in other paint schemes. We've got a tuxedo black paint scheme that looks really, really cool. And if you've got like a direct connection sort of the same sort of decal set that they did on the drag pack, it's a really badass looking car. So
I may or may not have seen it, and I can attest that it is a badass looking car. Yeah, that's going to be amazing. So so if somebody buys a Ready Chassis car, you can say, hey, I'm kind of curious what this thing's going to look like when it's got a wrap on it. You can have there's going to be renderings available too.
yeah, so
Man.
that's one of the reasons we're working with Rage Wraps is because we've got the renderings finished. If you send it over to Rage, they can mock up what the car would look like with the wrap on it. So you can really get a feel for what the car is going to look like when it's finished. And I think that's really important, because when you're spending a good amount of money to get the final result that you really want, you should have the way that you see it, right? And so that the most important part for us is we want to produce colors that make sense, so that the door jambs and the underhood of the car, if you're got a plum crazy car, pick a plum crazy paint code with us. Don't paint it red and then wrap it in purple.
Yeah.
If you know what you want in the end, you can build it that way.
So with I know we talked a little bit earlier about you having some cars already pretty much ready to go. Like, okay, what do you want on it? We already have the chassis. And you talked about having some of them painted. Is this going to be a situation where you have some that are painted and some just a body in white? Some sort of variety to pick from?
So as we bring up our production, um, and because we're starting with cars that were already assembled, right? So we're not buying a body in white. We're actually buying an SXT, and
Hmm.
we're cleaning it out. So I'm trying to pick a handful of pretty cool colors to get start with. So if you go out there and you get a Challenger LC chassis, if you get a 2018, you can get it in forest green. You can get it in F8.
Hmm.
You can get it in Hemi Orange. There's a lot of 6-cylinder cars out there that are lower mileage that are really nice. Like I watch CarMax all the time just to kind of see what colors are popping up. If you want white, you want silver, you want black, or you want dark gray, it's almost like a 3-to-1. But if you want orange, I'm going to pick the popular colors and build off the popular colors because I know that there are guys and gals that go, I want a Hemi Orange finished race car, and so we're picking the popular colors, and they get sold quicker. I've got commitments on a number of cars already. I can't say how many. It's far more than I can build right now. But we're going to be very busy the next Matthew's going to be very, very busy the next 2 or 3 years. And as are all of our business partners that are essentially doing the work. We do a lot of disassembly and assembly. I don't do the chassis work for the models that we build, because if you've got people like Watson Engineering that are out there that already are building, those class level cars, that's part of the branding that goes into this, is that you get the same company that's building those factory supercars.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see where this goes. I think it's going to be pretty amazing. Um, when is your target to have the first cars starting to roll out?
The end of the summer,
Nice.
we'll have a 850 LC chassis that you really only need to go out and get. It's so the first LC chassis is built for a an ATI cased turbo 400 Ford 9-inch 4-link. Light. I found a company that makes a lightweight tubular front suspension conversion for an LC. We've really got the car's weight down. You have to actually, depending on the class you're going to run, and you have to ballast up because they're that light. We found some ways to get more weight out of the chassis, and it's a fantastic car. It's a fantastic car at high speed, and it's they're built to go 180 miles an hour. So, and the NHRE is going to put their certification on it. So that's the way it will roll. But
Wow.
yeah, by the end of the summer, we'll have. By the end of September, we should probably have 3 quantity. I'd like to do an FC7. You got to do a body in white because you can wrap it in whatever you want. And I'd really like to have a Hemi orange car finished. I've already got 2 of them acquired, and then a silver car because I've got a silver truck. It'll look really nice for SEMA and PRI. So we're gonna wrap one of those, and then the winter's going to be busy. I mean, so long as the economy sticks out where it is and people still want the stuff, we're going to be building a lot of things.
Awesome. Please tell me you're going to document some of these first builds. Are we
All
going
of
to be
them.
able to? Yes. All right.
So keep in mind, part of the reason it's taking as long as it is in fact, I just had a conversation with CarTech today because I'm trying to find a way to publish. I'll just share this with you. This is the competitor's book, but this was my inspiration. So the Copo program had something called the Copo Build Book, and
Oh,
they've even got a layout for how they even assembled these cars. But every single thing that they do to put these cars together is in the book. So we're documenting the complete disassembly of an LC and an LX chassis. Darts are actually easier. There's not as many parts. And then all of those parts can be available. So we're documenting the entire disassembly process, what you keep, what you don't need. Then there's going to be a section that has all of the components that you can buy. And then if you want them as kits, it's really just bundling components. And then there's the finished chassis. So we're going to have instructions for everything. So really somebody that is pretty good with tools, but maybe isn't a pro with cars, if they follow the instructions, they should be able to put it together. I have to say, I mean, Factory 5 is the company that did this at scale for the Cobra program. So we observed and learned what Dave Smith did. Fantastic product, and we're following some of the same methodology because I mean, I don't have a build school, but maybe in the future that'll be something, as you can come and actually put one of our cars together. But race cars and street cars are different. You don't have as many parts. I mean,
yeah.
you got electric water pumps. There's a lot of design that just goes into making it safe at speed and making it easy to work on, transmission tunnels where you can actually get bolts out. But you're not putting a lot of street parts on it. You can take one of our cars and you can add all you want to. You want to put air conditioning in it, go for it. It's yours when you buy it. But we just want to get you to the track safe and quickly.
Wow. As soon as you get those build books ready, send one my way because I got to check that out. Because I'm like, what did I say earlier? It's like the Lego store. You get instructions too. I mean, it couldn't be any easier, folks. And if you have deep enough pockets or good credit, I mean, you're off to the races, quite literally.
Literally.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. Matt, you've been a little quiet. How do you feel about this whole thing?
So as far as it goes, a lot of the perspective that I've been giving on this stuff is I've been freelance writing for a couple of different companies, including our own. And basically, what I'm trying to do is appeal to not only the people, what the people are saying, seeing it firsthand from the press perspective, but also what people are saying from my generation. And the number one thing that I want to mention is the fact that people my age, when they see that they can get a car that is older or maybe an LC chassis for an affordable price or completely done, they are bought in. And I have a lot of people, close friends actually, that have been talking with me and wondering, basically, can they get their hands on a car first? Because, you know, I hate saying it this way, but most of my friends are all into imports, and I find it very uninteresting. So, you know, they always end up coming to me about, you know, more technical questions. And so basically I see my generation getting into these cars and solving a lot of their problems and a lot of their questions. So I definitely think that what we're doing here is going to be not only helping people right now, but people that are my age and people that are younger than me. So we're hoping to kind of appeal to everybody.
Awesome. You got a lot on your plate, dude. You're freelance writing and running this show. Man, that's great. Who are you writing for?
So currently, right now, Power Auto Media is a connection. So they have several different magazines. The ones that I've written and published for so far is Street Muscle magazine, and they have a Hot Rod magazine, and they also have another one that I'm going to be publishing on. I don't want to disclose too much, but I just did an article on a drag pack, and I'll be publishing on Dragzine as well. So
nice.
And then I've been publishing for HemiPages, which was the thing that I actually founded with my dad. And I'm hoping that by publishing on all these different sites and putting a lot of content out there, I can hopefully start publishing in either Dodge Garage or I can start publishing on Hot Rod Magazine. So
that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Are you going to get one of these cars? How deep are you into racing? I know your dad's obsessed. I'm going to start calling him the mad scientist.
He is a mad scientist. Absolutely.
Oh, you see that one behind him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the goal is basically with this car, it's the prototype. It's the, I don't know how educated everybody is, but we have an F-body kit that we're trying to put together. And without cussing here, it's the effing send it kit.
Actually, it's the F King F body F King send kit because the F body was a kit car, so it's the effing send it kit. That's what we're calling it.
Yeah,
I like it.
He's got a very thorough explanation, but long story short, we're going to be slapping a lot of power into that piece of crap back there. So, and that's going to be a test product, obviously. That is going to be seen a couple years in the future. We have a lot of stuff we have to prioritize, but this is a little bit more of a side project. And the goal is to basically prove that what Mopar did in the performance days when they built the F bodies, we can do it ourselves and kind of modularize it the same way. So we're going to be using my car as a test bed, and we actually have another jalopy back here that we're going to be borrowing.
It's the rustiest car ever.
And
that car is the rustiest car I've ever. If we even move it, you close the door, sand. The car is just returning to the earth at this point. But we bought it for the engine compartment to mock up a turbo kit. So
yeah,
fun.
So and if you want a little bit of a story, we're actually pulling it out of the trailer, and one of the
oh god.
leaf spring mounts broke right off.
Well, the rear end went right into the car and through the floor. I've never seen anything like it before.
because we bought it for the subframe, it's not a big deal. But it's totally crap otherwise. So yeah, that's pretty much our goal. Is just to I plan on racing this car, which not only is it rare that it's an F body, but it's a wagon, and all again, my friends think I'm totally nuts because I buy the weirdest stuff and I try doing the weirdest stuff with it. So,
And with Lug, your dog, who's been quietly sitting in your lap this whole time. Lug the
Lug,
I
pug.
know he's
Lug the
Lug the
pug.
pug.
mascot.
I love it.
Lug,
For anyone
Lug
that
the
knows me
pug,
on a personal
named
level, I
after
love
Lug
smash
Man.
face dogs. So that's awesome. I was going to ask you about him. I was like, who's your friend? Very cool. Yeah, I definitely like the F bodies. They've definitely grown on me the past few years. Especially the road runners. Those ones get hate. They get so much hate, and I'm like, they're cool. Come on. So I would love to see one with a Hemi swap. I don't know how many of those. I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of them now, but definitely I can't wait to see one of those in person. What's your goal with the wagon, Matt? Are you going to stay slant six and turbo it or what?
So again, without disclosing too much and without because we don't have any complete plans. We have complete plans for the F body, and we have a lot of complete plans in general for engine bay and engine compartment stuff. But long story short, that car is going to see probably 3 or 4 motors.
Nice.
we have a very large swath of different drive lines we're going to put in the F body because I think there's enough out there, and they're still cheap, and they're not hate. Well, there's a hate group out there for them, but they've got a great front suspension that you can leave alone. That's why it's our economy model. You can use a lot of what's there. If you don't find a rusty one, you've got a really good car, and so he's going to have everything in it at some point.
I think that it's pretty safe to say though that there's going to be a turbo kit, which we're also another one of those things that we're prototyping is trying to get a slant 6 turbo kit produced, and we're going to try and get a couple of other turbo kits into production that people can buy because they'll be produced in quantity as well. So there's going to be a lot of stuff.
One thing it bothers me every time I do it. Whenever I look up a turbo kit for a Gen 3 Hemi, I'm like, how is this so dead? I mean, I'm getting search results for LS engines, which really pisses me off. And I'm like, where's all the Hemi stuff? So the more Hemi parts that are out there, especially when it comes to forced induction, happier I'll be. I want choices. I like having options. So like I said, I'm really excited to see what happens with Ready Chassis, and I cannot wait to see the documentation, and it's just going to be really fun to watch. But what I want to do right now is I know we have 10 people in the chat. It's Friday night. You know what I mean? But I'm going to, for those of you that are in the chat, I'm going to throw up the link to join us on the stream. If you have any questions, we'll open the forum for about 5 or 10 minutes, see if anybody's got anything. And go from there. Let's see what the chat says really quick. I don't know. Did this guy think that there was a Chevelle in the background? I'm not quite sure. Jermaine, I don't know what you're talking about, buddy. David, I don't know what you're talking about either. A little off there.
Yeah, it looks like Jeff Lingenfelter asked in our private chat because I sent out the wrong link that he's really interested in the turbo slant.
Hey, Jeff, you want to come on? Why don't you ask a question, Jeff? I'm going to bring you onto the stream. All right, buddy?
Hey.
There he is.
Here we are. Jeff, nice to meet you, buddy.
Thanks. Nice to meet you. So, yeah, I've got a 71 Dart Swinger rolling chassis sitting in a storage garage, and I got a slant 6 sitting on the floor. And I'm real interested in the turbo package as a total change for what I'm used to doing, which is a big block duster.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I mean, so there's a company out on the West Coast. It'll be available on our site as a kit, but they've developed all of the port injection. They've got a different number of computers that they work, and essentially a log intake that works with it. And in fact, I just got a quote today on some of the things that they're doing, and it's basically a turnkey kit. So, like I said, every time we've got a manufacturer that does something really good, we're going to make it available as a modularized kit. I kind of see myself as a mall if you will, when it comes to some of these packages, because the more that people are willing to develop things, and like Jeff, what a great product you brought to market with the brackets. Uh, make that stuff available if people want it and need it, and it serves the market really well. But yeah, I mean, from what we can tell, we're in the area of 350 to maybe 400 horsepower. A slant six, that's really pushing it, but in a light car, that's pretty wicked.
Heck yeah.
And that's E85 too. So, and you get the
That's what I
ethanol, you can really, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I run in the Duster, so it'll be nice to use up whatever I don't use in the Duster on a weekend. Put it in
Sure.
a slant six dart.
Yeah, slant sixes are like unsung heroes. And if you talk to anybody in the Mopar world and you ask them what the most reliable Mopar engine of all time is, they'll probably say a slant six. I've heard
Yeah.
so many crazy stories about, oh yeah, I ran the thing out of oil and drove it 20, 30 miles home and it didn't die on me. I'm like, geez. So it's just crazy the kind of stuff I hear about those things.
Yeah, I wanted to give some props out. There's a company called Gill Welding, Gill Welding. Bryce Gill is who I actually spoke to today. So they use the Aussie Speed 4-barrel manifold, and they've got a Mark II or a Mark Series manifold, and an ECU that they use is Megasquirt or the Megasquirt 3 Pro Evo. And that's pretty similar to like a Dominator ECU. But anyway, they've got the entire package. It's got traction control, launch control, nitrous control if you really wanted to do that. Set up for E85, the right injectors. They can even supply the tank and everything. So we're going to build a chassis for that, for that setup, because you really got to lighten up the car to make it fun. If you put it in a 4,000-pound car, it's still 300 horsepower, but to make it fun at the track and safe at the track, we're going to design a chassis for the Slant 6 turbo kit and use the Gill Welding intake setup.
Awesome, Jeff. You build brackets. Do you do custom stuff?
I have.
Because I know that there's a small, tiny little market in the 72 to 1980 Dodge truck community where everybody wants the Little Red Express or non-step rear bumper brackets. And I know that I've been getting a lot of questions about the bumpers on my truck because they're actually tucked. So they're like, I don't know, an inch and a half or 2 inches shorter than they normally are. So they appear a little bit cleaner. Is that something that you could do?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll be in touch.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm thinking about maybe just sending you. I gotta take because I didn't do the brackets on my truck. I bought my truck from a guy who bought it from one of my buddies, Murray, that built it. And like I said, I've been getting a lot of questions about the bumpers on this thing, and I have to convince people that they're the factory bumpers. They're just tucked. So if we could have some prototypes made of those brackets, I think we might be business partners in the future.
Sure. Send me a message.
All right, I will. Cool. Let's jump back into, for everybody in the chat that's joining us. If you have any questions about Ready Chassis and the cool stuff that Chuck is doing, and Matt, feel free to post them in the chat. We'll just run through here and see what people have said. I haven't been ignoring you guys. I've been just trying to get the rundown of Ready Chassis because it's been a while since Chuck and I had a discussion. Ricky Roberts says, my son has a 72 Dart 446 pack 1973 motor running. He just put bushings in the A-frame, trying to get the front end solid, the weight of a motor. It's at the alignment shop now. Any information would be helpful. What kind of information do you want, buddy?
Yeah, I don't know. Make sure you got the, I don't know what bushings he's talking about other than maybe replacing parts up front for the links and stuff like that. But make sure you check those torsion bars. Putting a big old 446 pack in an A body is challenging.
Yeah, definitely. And how do those aftermarket front suspensions respond to? Because I know that QA1 and some other, I think there's a couple others out there. Do you have any experience with that kind of stuff with big blocks?
Yeah, there's a lot more adjustment that comes with the kits that are out there. So I mean, for drag, you want to change caster a little bit. Toe and camber is pretty simple. And then of course you want really good weight transfer. But getting the weight out of it and getting pieces out from where the headers are going to belong. That makes it maintaining the car and doing, header exhaust drops a lot easier. But no, they've done a really good job. And on the big block stuff, I mean, it just oil pan clearance, oil pump access, even just getting to the mounts. All of the aftermarket kits are really nice. I'm very impressed. I actually bought one of the very first AJE kits in 2003 when they were first making them, and by far they're the lightest. I know Magnum Force makes them. There's a lot of really great options out there. I'm
There
just
are.
I'm picky for the AJE stuff, which we carry. But I mean, it just makes, especially if you're going to do a G3 swap. I mean, the exhaust options and the things that you can do are far easier. But I've done big block in factory cars using the Schumacher mounts when those were available. Transdapt has a mount kit now that's not as close, but it's good. And they don't make them for the 73 or later cars, of course, yet. I heard US Car Tools going to be doing that, by the way. But yeah, I mean, if you can do aftermarket suspension, if you can foot the bill for it, it's the way to go.
Awesome. Earlier, it's funny, US Car Tools been brought up a couple times. One of the reasons why I even brought up the 80s era Daytonas, because word on the street, I did some digging because I really wanted to find the old direct connection rear wheel drive conversion kit, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I reached out to a guy who did the G3 swap into Daytona, and he told me that US Car Tools was working on a kit. So I need to reach out to those guys and see how accurate that is, because that would definitely be something I'd be interested in. Let's jump back over to the chat. Matt from Big Blocks Garage. What's up, boys? Driving home listening at a light. Fro says hi. What's up, guys? What's up, Fro?
Big Blocks Garage.
Yeah, another great podcast. I listened to it today. Their latest episode had me rolling and feeling really nostalgic because they were talking about video games and stuff that I haven't played in, gosh, over 20 years. It was a good, fun conversation. Logan, what's up, buddy? Mr. Jason Gibbons says he loves Lug the Pug. Awesome. Side Road listening. Go check out Side Road's work on Instagram. He does some really cool graphics and stuff. Whoops. I love the F-bodies, but I love all Mopar. I think we're all in that boat, Roy. I don't think there's a Mopar I really hate, except for maybe the 88 Plymouth Sundance with the really bad paint that my dad used to embarrass me driving around. I hated that thing. Love the thought process, guys. Good stuff. Yeah, I do too. I really like what Ready Chassis is all about. Sometimes I wonder about you guys. I'm like, gosh, that's a heck of a lot of work, but I love to watch businesses develop, and I can't wait to see what Ready Chassis comes up with in the future. What's up, bud? Ryan, what's up? Dave says the 318 more reliable than the Slant 6. You think so? How do you guys feel? Do you think the Slant 6 takes a backseat to the 318 as far as reliability and durability?
I don't know. I've done some things with Slant 6s that shouldn't be talked about. I mean, back in the late 90s, we had a spare one. We filled the engine crankcase with Rust-Oleum black paint and a gallon of water after draining the oil. And it ran at 4,000 RPM for about 45 minutes.
Wow.
And it was a 92,000 mile motor. I don't know how that happened. I don't know why we did it either. But back then you could get $200 if you wanted to crush a car. So we got rid of a lot of stuff like that.
Gosh, I see a lot of people do crazy stunts on YouTube. I think there needs to be some Slant 6 stunts happening. Like, how much can this thing take? This is a great idea. I shouldn't have said that. Damn it. Somebody's in a week, there's going to be a whole series of videos. Hopefully.
Yeah, there you go.
Now I need to go find a Slant 6 car to destroy.
Yeah.
Ryan Lusk in the house. He says, my CUDA will be needing some Ready Chassis stuff. Well, reach out to the McMurrays. They got you covered, buddy.
Hit us up, Ryan.
Jeff, what do you think about the Slant 6 versus the 318?
I never got to own one new.
Okay.
So I don't know which one would really survive, but I'd beat on both of them.
Fair enough. Roy Wheeler says, my friend's Mopar had a Slant 6 truck that she ran for 5 years with a rod knocking. When we pulled it apart, the rod end was oval like an egg. True story from the 90s.
Wow.
Oh.
Crazy.
I agree. Just leaning on my son's 71 Charger while drinking beer and watching. That sounds fun. But
There you go, bud.
normally I'll be open and honest here. Usually I have one drink while recording this podcast, just to get me a little loose and in a fun mood. But I haven't eaten anything in like 12 hours, so I wanted to avoid any potential mishaps on my end. Ryan Lusk, Uncle Tony will do it. How dare you mention that man? No, I'm just kidding. Any more last call for any more questions for Chuck and Matt about Ready Chassis? So who's going to develop a kit so I can Gen 3 Hemi swap my 80s Delta 88?
Yeah, I had a 77 Delta 88 that had a Pontiac 301 in it. I bought it off. I lived in the city. I bought it off a neighbor that's 3 doors down. $300. I put a gas tank in it, and we called it the Roach Coach. It ran great. But I mean, Pontiac was putting motors in Oldsmobiles, so I guess putting a Gen 3 Hemi and an Olds wouldn't be that weird.
That's awesome.
Be the only way I drive an Olds, that's for sure.
Yeah, the whole Gen 3 Hemi swap movement is going to get crazy. I feel like there's a bunch of stuff that I would love to see Gen 3 Hemi swap, but I don't know where this podcast is going to take me in the next 10 years. So I'm being a little hush hush because I love the idea of doing stuff that makes Chevy and Ford guys go crazy. Import guys too. There's a couple imports I would love to see Hemi swapped. 89 350 with 4-speed now. Chevy 350. As if there was another 350. Hey, now I have an Olds. Yeah. Get out of the chat, bud. Just kidding. Just kidding, buddy.
You got to love a 442.
There's
a couple of really cool, the G-body stuff. I've never had the heart for it, but I've always had the respect for it. And then, so we've got a G-body planned in the next couple of years to help answer the LS crowd. I think it's worthy, and there's a lot of people that love them. But we're Mopar people at heart, so it's hard for me to say that. But you got to realize that there's other people that have other tastes. We'll never touch a Corvette, though. Never. I won't go near Corvettes. I get a rash when I walk near them.
I have a secret fetish for C3 Corvettes, but that's a different topic.
We saw that on Facebook today. It's the best looking one that they make. Forget this rear engine thing that they did. That's kooky. As
a kid, I always thought they looked like that first Batmobile, the Michael Keaton Batmobile. I don't know why, the big fenders, I don't know what it was, but I always thought it was the Batmobile. But anyway, this is a Mopar podcast, so I won't talk about. Oh, I did want to say, have you guys seen the Hell National, the Grand National with the Hellcat?
Yep.
How do you feel about it?
I mean, Grand Nationals those cars were always the ones that in the early to mid 90s, those are the ones we feared because you didn't know if you were getting tangled up with a 14-second car or an 11-second car. And back then in the street, that was crazy. And then I see guys LS swap them, obviously. I actually think it would be neat to have if you're going to do a Grand National, do a stage 1 V6 with a bigger turbo, keep it Grand National. But Hell National, I guess if you're going to put a motor in a GN, Hellcat's the way to do it. Supercharged.
I'm going to bring him on the show. I want to dig a little bit deeper, see how crazy the guy really is. Che says RX-7 Hemi swap will be badass. I that would be cool. Those rotaries, man. My buddy had one of the mid to late 80s RX-7s with a rotary in it, and that thing threw flames. It was a wild little animal. I couldn't imagine one with a Hemi swap. But normally I would say I don't know how much room those things have, but I've seen some crazy engines stuffed in those Mazda Miatas. So I wouldn't put it. I'm sure there's a Miata out there with a Hemi swap. I think I talked about that on the last.
Yeah, live. I think there is a Hellcat Miata, right? Man,
actually, that guy crashed it. He was leaving
a
car show, and because it had the weight distribution, the car like spun out, went right into a ditch, destroyed all their work. But it was a cool concept, and they had the car on a Hoonigan burnout thing that they were messing with the car, and they said that there is supposedly another car in the plans. So
really, see, with great power comes great responsibility. The fact is, I'm really surprised that Cleveland Power and Performance doesn't have a serious inventory of Hellcat engines with as many accidents as I see those things involved.
Yeah. Yeah. I've talked to those guys. They buy as many as they can get their hands on. They sell them really fast.
I'm sure.
They're doing a fantastic job of bringing that to market. I mean, I don't know how many they've sold. They could probably tell you. That'd be an interesting one to have on the show, because those guys, man, they've built some neat cars. That Charger that they did, I mean, they've done some really fantastic work. And I met them at the Nats. They were fantastic, fantastic folks.
They had a car that I was really interested in for a while. I doubt they have it anymore, but it was a 300C, and I think it was an SRT8 that was converted to a 6-speed. And I was like, that would be cool. That's one thing I always wished about the 300C and the Charger. I wish they had the 6-speed option.
The 6-speed, yeah.
Yeah.
A 6-speed Charger that's cool.
Yeah,
Especially
I don't
do it without too much work.
Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't, because there's guys that have families that like, I still want to shift gears. You know what I mean? But Jason Gibbons, I have a 70 Duster with a Gen 3 Hemi carburetor, 4-speed. Awesome.
Nice.
But 2 Chargers and 1 Cutlass, I'm good. Yeah, that's definitely a good ratio to have. Ryan, let's cough. Buick Olds and Pontiac all had 350s.
All had 350s.
The fiberglass gives everyone a rash. Oh yeah, from the Corvettes? Yes.
With Corvette, yeah.
Heading out. Talk soon, brother. Great info here. No problem, side road. Take care, bud. And it looks like that's it. Guys, why don't you go ahead and let everyone know where they can find Ready Chassis, HemiPages, and all the other fun stuff you're working on, Matt, all your magazines and all that good stuff. Once Chuck and Matt get through, Jeff, feel free to promote your bumpers, your bumper brackets.
So anybody who wants to find us, go to readychassis.com, spelled like it sounds. You can always call us at 833-GOT-H3MI or HEMI, got Hemi. And Matt, I'll let you tell them where to find you at Power Auto Media.
Yeah, so you can go to any of the sites in Power Auto Media. My main site that I post on is Street Muscle Magazine. And you can find a lot of my articles there, and very soon you will be able to find my newest article on Dragzine. So dragzine.com and streetmusclemag.com. I'll
be looking forward to that issue. Jeff, where can people find your bumper brackets, buddy?
You can find us at www.lingenfeldersbrackets.com, and you can also find us on Facebook.
Awesome. And like I said, I'm definitely going to be reaching out to you. I think we might have a little a niche carved in the tin grill Dodge truck community here, because awesome. I'm not kidding. So many people have reached out to me about those bumpers, like, oh, they're from a C10. I'm like, what are you talking about? And it's
I've been approached.
Really?
I've been approached about that. Yes.
Interesting. So, I know people just want the regular bumpers or brackets, but I'm sure there is a nice little market for the tucked bumpers. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. All right, guys. Couple more quick ones. Roy, Hellcat K car or 80s Charger? Yes, definitely. There's still an 84, 85 Charger, a Shelby Charger on my way to work that I see at this wrecking yard. And it's just, they sell cars and it's in the front and it's got a perfect patina on it. I want it so bad, but the guy won't budge from $1,750 and I'm cheap. And I'm like, I'll give you $500 and he won't do it. But one vehicle that popped up again, I don't know if you guys remember me talking about the big block van that I let slip through my fingers for $500. It just popped up on OfferUp again for $300 this time because the guy didn't come and pick it up. So Destiny says, hey, maybe we get a big block van. Probably not, but we'll see.
Any news when your Dart's going to be out there?
I have no idea. I know the guy's got it and I know the guy's got money. So we'll see what happens. I know he's building it for his grandson. And from the sound of it, yeah, that's why he bought my Kragers too. He wanted to be able to present the car really nice. So when his grandson saw it for the first time, he's like, oh, it's got wheels and all this cool stuff on it. I wish he had bought my 6-pack hood because it's sitting right on the other side of this door and I can't sell it. It's $1,000 hood. I got it up for $500. No one wants it.
Oh,
so it's killing me right now. So I'm like, maybe that's somebody telling me I need to get another Dart. So if I get one, I'll have to send it to you with a 6-pack hood, Chuck, and be like, don't worry about the hood, buddy. I got it covered.
We'll get it done.
Irvin, it's all right, buddy. You can always check out the replay. Yes. Continue drinking. Someone needs to build a wing van. Hold my beer. Bud Mac, buy the van. I'm working on it. Would you believe I told her that I'm not really willing to pay $300 for it now? I'm so cheap. Oh, it's ridiculous. Hell yeah. All right, guys. That's it. Thanks for tuning in. I am your host, Chris Albrecht. That's Chuck. That's Matt. That's Jeff. And that was Talking Mopars Direct Connections Live number 5. We'll see you next time. No Mopar left behind.
See you guys.